We've been living with the NFC East for quite a while so far in this countdown of the Super Bowl era's most disappointing teams, but it's now time to spread our wings and fly off to another division. The 1988 Washington Redskins took the number 27 spot, and we'll be getting to number 26 in just a moment. But first, we've got to discuss C-Score. C-Score is a metric created by this channel that evaluates every single team of the Super Bowl era beyond just looking at its record. For a deeper explanation about how all this works, be sure to check out the description of this video. Let's quickly run down how a team qualifies as a disappointment. First, they nail down a season with a positive C-score. Then they improve upon that with a score that surpasses 15. Then comes a negative C-score. That third season becomes the disappointing one. The bigger the drop from season 2 to season 3, the bigger the disappointment. For a franchise that, unfortunately for them, is known for general disappointment, the Jacksonville Jaguars of 2008 are represented here at our number 27 spot for their specific disappointment. Thank you for joining us today. We are ready to roll. In 2006, the Jacksonville Jaguars did just about everything right, except for winning enough games. That 8-8 record sticks out like a sore thumb against a plus 97 point differential and top 10 finishes, top 9 finishes actually, in points scored, points allowed, and in strength of schedule. That gave them a C-score of 16.171. This 06 Jaguars team is one of the reasons that C-score exists. The argument here isn't that Jacksonville deserved to go to the playoffs over another team with a better record. That's not how the system works, and everyone involved in the NFL knows that wins and losses are what determines these things. The argument is that this was an excellent football team that is better than its record would indicate. Against that top-level schedule, they won 6 games by multiple possessions, 3 of those by at least 27 points. On the other hand, they lost 7 games by a single possession, 3 by 3 points, and another one in overtime. The Jags were mostly the victims of bad luck in a sport that is often described as being a game of inches. Mostly. They carried an 8-5 record into the season's final 3 games, only to lose all 3 by a combined 15 points, each of them by 7 points or fewer. Losing by fine margins is one thing, but at a certain point, you gotta ask a team to win at least one of those games, especially in Jacksonville's case in Week 17 against the Chiefs, where they would have made the playoffs had they won. Instead, they ended the season by jumping off sides. In what was a relatively open AFC playoff field, it's fair to wonder how the Jaguars would have fared. They certainly had the talent to make some noise. There wasn't a whole lot different about the 2007 Jaguars. Their schedule was easier, but their performance level was mostly the same. They gave up a few more points, they scored a few more points. What they did though was improve that record, jumping up to 11-5 and giving a slight boost to their C-score, landing at 16.329. Jacksonville simultaneously improved from 6 multi-possession wins last season to 7 and cut down their single possession losses from 7 all the way down to 2. In fact, they played fewer one-score games than they had one-score losses the year before. The roster underwent some significant changes, most notably at quarterback, where head coach Jack Del Rio said that he felt a conviction in his heart that David Garrard was the guy for the job over presumed starter Byron Leftwich. He also added that Garrard earned it. A first-round selection just 4 seasons earlier, Leftwich and his moderately decent resume was sent packing, cut from the squad 8 days before the season opener. The coaching staff also saw some changes. Only Kennedy Polamalu as running backs coach and Andy Heck as offensive line coach were returned from the offense and special teams. This didn't change too much about the team's performance, of course, other than that 11-5 record, which in a business of bottom lines surely made Del Rio feel like a genius. There was no more need to wonder the Jaguars would now be in the playoffs as the AFC's 5th seed, nabbing 2nd place in the AFC South as the Colts won the division for the 5th consecutive season. They were favorites on the road against the Steelers, and they won that game. They were not favorites the following week in New England against the undefeated Patriots. They played them level in every single quarter, except for the third, and took what had to be considered an expected loss. No shame in that. The Jags had put together a fine season, gotten themselves their first playoff win of the 21st century, had some good young talent, and looked primed to make a leap into contention, especially if they could find a way to wrest the division away from the Colts. Their arrow was clearly pointing up. But sometimes an upward pointing arrow runs straight into a thunderstorm. While their point differential didn't perfectly flip, their record sure did. Jacksonville was 5-11 in 2008, and even though they faced a tough schedule, they're now outside the top 20 in both points scored and points allowed. For a franchise only in its 14th season of existence, they had known enough success to rightfully look at this season as a massive disappointment. Their C-score plummeted all the way down to negative 8.1. The Jags' first 8 games of the season were all decided by a single possession. They were 3-3 when they had their bye, but lost 2 in a row coming out of it to sit at 3-5. The single possession game streak was broken when they romped over the Detroit Lions, who of course would end the season winless. And now at 4-5, there was plenty of opportunity for them to make some noise and get back into the playoffs. After all, their 5 losses were only by a combined 24 points. This proved to be the end of the line though. What followed was a 1-6 end to the season, where only once they were able to clear 20 points scored, and only once were they able to keep their opponents under 23 points scored. Once thought to be the Colts' biggest threat in the AFC South, Jacksonville was now in last place as its only team with a losing mark. A major reason for Jacksonville's struggles was a rash of injuries to their offensive line. Vince Manawai's season was over during the first quarter of the first game. So too was the fate for Maurice Williams. They were already without center Brad Meester. Then there's the small matter of reserve lineman Richard Collier getting shot 14 times just 5 days before the season opener. He survived the shooting but would never play or walk again. As if to prove that nobody was safe, Chris Naoli was re-signed to the team after being cut during the offseason, only to suffer his own injury, never again playing another down. The Jags made a few tweaks to the roster coming into the season, and they made a big move up the board in the NFL draft to snag pass rusher Derek Harvey. He didn't shine in his rookie year, yet still set what would become a career high with 3.5 sacks. He was gone from Jacksonville after 3 seasons, then gone from the NFL after 4. All in all, this disaster class from the Jaguars almost makes that 5-11 record look like an overachievement. Perhaps there was some hope that this season was an outlier and that things could turn back around. With a decent run up to that point, Jack Del Rio was kept on as the head coach, and while things improved slightly, he was done for in November 2011. Total upheaval would soon follow when owner and founder Wayne Weaver sold the team to Shahid Khan on the same day that Del Rio was fired. The flickering flame of 2006 turned into a gentle fire in 2007, but instead of roaring to life in 2008, all hopes were instead smothered by a blanket of disappointment. We're starting to see a deceleration in the rankings, with the Jaguars staying in the negative 24 range. We will be entering the top 25 with our next entry, and it will be one of the franchises we see here making a second appearance. Be sure to join us next time to find out who that's gonna be. Thank you so much for getting to this point in the video. Please take a little time to like and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to ding that bell so that you don't miss out on any of our future offerings in this series and beyond. Our last two entries proved to be temporary disappointments for those involved. Not for the Jaguars. In the 16 seasons since, they have 11 seasons with double-digit losses and only 2 playoff appearances. To be fair though, those were impactful appearances, making it to the AFC Championship game one season and completing a 27-point come-from-behind victory in the other. Including interim coaches, Liam Cohen takes the sidelines this season as their 8th coach since Jack Del Rio's dismissal. And it all started going downhill right here in 2008. Let me know what you think about this Jaguars team and the franchise as a whole. Is there any hope for them in the future? Could a better performance in 2008 have stemmed at least some of the horror show they have become since? Sound off on these topics or anything else you may have on your mind right down there in the comments section. Thank you once again for taking the time to join us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.